Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Eric and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is May 6th, 2021, and today we are going to be filling out our 2022 early Senate predictions. We're going to be going state by state in the most contested states, and we are going to be giving our preliminary predictions. There have been a few notable announcements from different candidates in different states that are placing their bid or not placing their bid in the Senate races, which is going to impact our decision.
With that being said, let's get right into it. So, keep in mind this is pretty preliminary compared to, when these elections are going to be. But we do have some new information out. We really don't know yet how popular Biden's going to be before the midterms, because that probably is going to determine how well the Democrats or the Republicans do. But let's take a look at our very early predictions. West Coast is obviously a solid Democratic. The Northeast mainly is also solid Democratic. So is New York. This is, I believe, Kirsten. No, this is Chuck Schumer's seat. We also have Hawaii as safety, as well as Illinois. Let's head now to the safe Republican states. These include Idaho, Utah, Kansas, the Dakotas, and most of the Deep South, with the notable exception of Georgia. We'll get to that later. Chuck Grassley's seat in Iowa, I'm not sure if he's going to run for re-election or not, but I think regardless, it probably will be over 15 points, considering how far to the right Iowa has moved, mostly due to those rural areas and those demographics changing. Tim Scott in South Carolina, it looks like he might actually get a primary challenge, but I think it will be safe for now, regardless of whether or not there is a primary challenge. And I think it'll be over 15 points. Kentucky, this is Rand Paul. Indiana, I believe that's Todd Young. Oh, sorry, I think Todd Young might be retiring. I'm not too sure on that one, but I believe that is it for the safe Republican states. Let's head now to our likelies. All right, and sorry, Todd Young is not retiring. I think I was thinking of someone else. Sorry about that. Well, let's head into our likelies now. Colorado, Michael Bennet, a pretty moderate senator, actually. But I think he is probably going to win re-election in a likely margin, considering how far left Colorado has moved. Especially we saw that in the 2020 election. It went 10 points. Sorry, it went 13.5 points to Joe Biden. Another likely state. I think let's head to Republican likelies now. Another likely state would be Missouri. And Eric, if you want to explain this.
Right. So Missouri, generally a pretty conservative state. There was a Democrat who was going to run, but they ended up not running, and that was really the only candidate who really had a chance in Nevada. So I really don't think the Democrat is going to win, but Eric Greitens is in the state, and he's likely going to take this seat.
Right, and he is the nominee. The reason why, or no, sorry, he's not the nominee, but he's likely going to be the nominee. The reason why we have this as likely is because he's a pretty bad candidate. He had a bunch of scandals as governor, and then he obviously resigned, and now he's running for this seat. And again, the only candidate that could have won this seat was Jason Kander. He got the margin down to like 3% in 2016, which is kind of surprising because Trump won the state by 19 points. But he got the margin really down against Roy Blunt, who, by the way, is retiring. So we are going to put this one as likely for now. I think it's going to be like 13-ish points of a victory. It's not going to be close, but it is likely. In the other state, which, it might be surprising to some people, is Ohio. It's because even though we're seeing a retirement for Rob Portman, we are seeing it's going to be like a pro-Trump MAGA candidate as a Republican nominee versus likely Tim Ryan. Tim Ryan announced a few weeks ago that he was going to be running for the seat, which didn't happen actually when we made our past prediction on this. But with Tim Ryan running now, I think he's a pretty solid candidate. He's probably the best candidate the Democrats can put up in this election. It looks like they're probably going to go against, I believe his name's Josh Mandel, the current treasurer. I think he recently bashed Mike DeWine for being a rhino. But I think that he's probably going to be the nominee in this primary, but it's a very contested primary so far. Tim Ryan. The problem is the rural areas in Ohio. I don't think he can really get the enough of the vote out here in order to end up winning the state at the end of the day. But it will be closer compared to Rob Portman run because Rob Portman was a pretty good candidate. He got like 60% of this for 60% of the vote each time that he ran in this state. But we are going to be putting this one as likely for now, unless we get a new development out here. And I think that might be it for our likelies. Oh no, there's one more likely. Yeah, let's put this one as likely for now. Eric, if you want to explain why exactly we're doing this.
Yeah, so this is a very tentative kind of prediction because it's, it really depends on what happens. So, I believe Maggie Hassan is going to be, yeah, seeking election here, and she has a pretty good chance against all of the all of the candidates, or most, I should say, because the poison to Maggie Hassan is Governor Kirsten. We don't know yet if he's going to be running. He said he's going to make a statement somewhere next month, end of next month, and from there we can kind of start gauging what can happen in the state of New Hampshire. But right now, without Sununu's official statement, we can for now put Maggie Hassan's seat as likely because against all of the other candidates, whether it's in her own primary or in the against Republicans, she does very well.
Yeah, I think she does pretty well against most candidates. The other one I can think about is Kelly Ayotte, who I think polls showed that Maggie Hassan would trail her by around like, oh no, sorry, Ayotte would trail Hassan by like 3-4 points. But Kristen is a very, very popular governor here. He won re-election in a complete blowout despite Biden winning this in a pretty solid margin. But if Kristen were to run, this would turn into like tilt to lean Republican. But he hasn't announced yet. So for now, we are going to put this one as likely. We're going to keep our eyes on this one and wait for that potential Sununu announcement. All right, let's head now to more likely states. We've got Alaska. So, Lisa Murkowski, she's getting a primary challenge, but I think Alaska does have that ranked choice voting now. So even if there is, a pro-Trump person running, most Democrats would probably put Murkowski as their second choice. So I think that might end up actually saving her in this state because Murkowski is one of the more moderate members, Republican members of Congress, or sorry, of the Senate. So another likely state is going to be Marco Rubio in Florida. He's a very well-known name. I believe he actually got. He's sometimes called, the Secretary of State of the informal Secretary of State of Latin America. I think that this one's going to be unlikely. There is probably a better shot that Ron DeSantis loses compared to Marco Rubio, but first of all, looking at it right now, we really don't know which Democrats are going to be running for this seat. It might end up being Stephanie Murphy because it does look like Charlie Crist and Nikki Fried. It looks like they're going to be running for governor. So we don't really know what good of a candidate they can put up. Plus, if this ends up being a red wave year, which according to historical precedent, it will be, I think Marco Rubio can win by a pretty decent margin, I would say.
All right, let's move on to the state of Arizona. And here we have Mark Kelly's seat, and the reason why he is up for election so early is because he won in the special race and he's going to finish off that term and run for the 2022 Senate race. And um, at the moment, Kelly has a pretty good shot. He is a very, favorable candidate. He won really decisively against Martha McSally, who was a pretty bad candidate. But if the Arizona GOP, which has not been doing so well recently, puts up any pro-Trump candidate, it's not going to be really appealing for all of those John McCain supporting Republicans who are pretty moderate and not, and do not really align with Donald Trump. In fact, Cindy McCain has been vocal kind of against Donald Trump and where the direction of the Republican Party is going in these recent months. So if the Arizona GOP puts up a pro-Trump Republican, it's pretty safe to say that he will win in around a lean tilt area, possibly two to 3 points. I would say is probably what's going to happen.
Right, and I agree with your point here. John McCain is basically the favorite son here. A lot of these suburban places have shifted dramatically to the left to Joe Biden and to Mark Kelly in the 2020 elections. because they don't like this pro-Trump rhetoric. They don't really like Trumpism that much. It was to the point where I believe Joe Biden actually notched 10% with Republicans in this state. So if they do end up running a pro-Trump candidate, I remember reading that. I think Paul Gosar. I'm not completely sure, but I think he might end up running. I believe I read somewhere Kelly Ward might run. I'm not completely sure about that, but this is very interesting to see. I believe Doug Ducey said he would not be running for this seat, which would make it a lot easier for Mark Kelly to win. So we're going to put this one as lean for now. Let's head to another lean state now, to the state of Nevada. So Catherine Cortez Masto is the current senator here. The only candidate we thought that could beat Catherine Cortez Masto was Brian Sandoval, who was the former, I believe he was a pretty popular moderate governor here as well. But other than that, there's really no one else that has a chance of defeating Catherine Cortez Masto. Perhaps a representative runs, but Nevada has moved decently enough to the left that I think she would be able to win the state pretty soundly, like 3-4%. Of course, it was pretty close in 2020. It ended up going down to like a 2.6 point margin, I believe. In 2018, we saw Jackie Rosen get a pickup here from Dean Heller. So I'm thinking we're putting this one as lean for now. But again, if this ends up being a red wave, this will change accordingly. According to, we're gonna keep making predictions up until election day. All right, let's head to Pennsylvania. So this race is actually getting very, very interesting. We are reading now that Connor Lamb, who is the very moderate representative of I believe this 17th or 16th district here, he's considering running for the Senate seat, even though John Fetterman, who is the current lieutenant governor, already announced he was running. I think this would be an interesting battle because they are both from Western Pennsylvania. Connor Lamb has a lot of name recognition. He won that special election in 2017, 2018, where he like outran Clinton by like 20 points in this district. You also have him giving the keynote address in the 2020 convention. But then you also have John Fetterman, who is also pretty well known. So this primary is going to be one to definitely watch. Regardless of who the candidate is, I do think this is probably going to be a tilt D flip. This currently is held by Pat Toomey, who announced he would not be running for re-election this year. I don't think the Republicans can really put up that great of a candidate. I think the ones being talked about right now are like Mike Kelly, who is a representative, and Guy, I forgot his last name, but it starts with an R. I think Reshalter might run here as well. But I think that whether it's John Fetterman or Connor Lamb, I think they're going to end up defeating their opponent. Also because of Pennsylvania shifting to the left a bit in the Joe Biden victory. But again, Joe Biden won because of the suburbs. So if Democrats run a candidate, the only way they're going to win is if they can increase margins in the suburbs and also do very well in the Philadelphia area, as well as Allegheny County, which is where Pittsburgh is. All right, let's head now to Wisconsin. Eric, why don't you cover Wisconsin?
Sure. So the situation in Wisconsin right now is kind of interesting, and we, I think, are going to leave the state as toss up because at the moment it doesn't really seem like we can really predict this in the very general direction because incumbent Senator Ron Johnson, who has aligned himself with Donald Trump a lot during his administration, is probably not going to run. Donald Trump really wants Ron Johnson to run to, very likely secure the seat, but Johnson wants to retire, and he probably will not, go against that decision. So this leaves an open seat for Wisconsin, and some notable candidates on the Democratic side include Sarah Godlewski, who is the Wisconsin State Treasurer, and Tom Nelson, who was a nominee for lieutenant governor and the nominee for one of the congressional districts here in Wisconsin. So the candidates on the Democratic side are pretty, they're pretty experienced in terms of a Senate race, and there haven't been any notable Republican candidates, but if Ron Johnson runs, this will probably go to him. But at the moment, it's hard to tell because Wisconsin is the most conservative state in the Rust Belt. But if you put up a good enough Democratic candidate, say Joe Biden, you could win, whether the margin is really small or not.
I would agree with you. I think that this will be a toss-up. Let's look. It's looking like Ron Kind might end up running in the state as well. Um, but this will be an interesting election because the governor election is also going to be quite close here between Tony Evers and whoever the Republican candidate's going to be. It's going to be a very, very tight race, and we're definitely going to be watching this one. So we're going to put this one as toss-up for now. All right, I'm going to head to North Carolina now, and then Eric can cover Georgia right after.
Sure.
So with North Carolina, we did initially have this one as lean, and we're going to actually move this to tilt now. Initially, we were thinking Mark Walker was going to be the nominee. He was a former representative. He did not run for reelection due to them having to redistrict some of the districts. So his district became significantly more Democratic. He didn't run for reelection. And looking at it right now, with Pat McCrory announcing his running, he's the former governor of North Carolina. He has announced he's running. It's significantly decreased the Republicans holding on to the seat because I feel like Mark Walker was the safe option here. I don't think he has that high name recognition. Most people don't really see him as favorable or unfavorable. But Pat McCrory, a lot of Democrats really don't like him. The notorious transgender bathroom bill was created here. I believe he had a part in that. And there's a lot of what he's done that Democrats really don't like, that it might actually end up mobilizing Democrats again to go to the polls and vote against him for Senate. But, looking at the primary poll so far, we've seen poll and poll and poll after poll. Pat McCrory would absolutely destroy Mark Walker in the primary. And I think that is probably because of name recognition. And it's not even, and this name recognition isn't even good for in the general election because the Democrats are definitely going to be voting against him, and I don't think he's a pretty bad candidate to run here for the Republicans. So we'll be putting this race as tilt R for now, and we're going to wait to see more data. But it also looks like that the Democratic nominee at the moment, the frontrunner does seem to be Jeff Jackson. I told Eric this before we recorded, but he's kind of a Cunningham-esque candidate. Most people don't know him. He's a current state senator. He's probably the quote unquote safe bet for Democrats here, like what they did with Cal Cunningham. All right, and now we're going to head to Georgia. Eric, why don't you take it away?
Right, and before I delve into the state of Georgia, it's kind of notable to note that the Democrats have reached 50 seats in the Senate. And even if the Republicans win the remaining two states, Georgia and Wisconsin, the vice president that in 2022 will still be Kamala Harris, who will, most certainly break the tie in the Democrats' favor. Once again, will that be beneficial for the Biden administration? We're not really sure because at the moment he's having some trouble passing the legislation he wants because of the very, very kind of slim Democratic majority, along with some very moderate senators like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. Anyways, back into the state of Georgia. This is Raphael Warnock's seat, and similar to the state of Arizona, he will finish off his 2-year term that he has, and he will be up for another election. And I think this is going to be in a tilt margin, because Raphael Warnock doesn't have too much experience, and at the moment he hasn't done anything controversial. He's voted with the Democratic Party, as one might expect. But one thing that may hurt his odds of winning is that voter suppression bill that has passed in Georgia, which makes it more difficult for Georgia citizens to go out and get to the polls and or register to vote. So that may hurt Raphael Warnock. But if the Georgia GOP puts up a pro-Trump candidate, and we'll see how this will impact the odds here in a couple of months. But what the preceding opponent of Raphael Warnock, Kelly Loeffler, that was her name. I already forgot. She was a pro-Trump candidate, and she very slimly lost, but still, it was a win for Raphael Warnock. So if there was another pro-Trump candidate that runs here, Raphael Warnock may have a chance of winning.
I agree that I think this voting bill would pretty much greatly damage Democrats' shots here at winning the state. It's honestly really not a great bill. I don't think it's really fair to the voters of Georgia to do this, but that's beyond the point. But I believe that I think they said that David Perdue was not going to be running for this seat. Yeah, I remember reading on I think it was AP News that he was no longer going to be running for the seat. He filed for like 2 days, then he announced he was not going to run. But Kelly Loeffler here might run. She actually made an interesting ad saying that she was going to counter like Stacey Abrams' operation of getting votes out to make sure or something about election integrity. Herschel Walker does seem to be the leading contender right now. He is the Trump-backed candidate. Doug Collins said he would no longer be running here. So I think Herschel Walker will probably be the nominee and will face up against Raphael Warnock. But I am expecting still Raphael Warnock to take the win here. But this is going to be a very close race. We'll also be closely watching this one. A Warnock win would greatly depend on voters coming out from the suburban areas, such as, DeKalb County, winning Cobb County. But that's what winning Georgia is going to be about from now on, as we shift. And that is our final map here, 51 to 48. So let's actually discuss here some implications. If Democrats were able to pick up Wisconsin, let's say that ends up going to them, I think this would have huge implications of what would happen. With Sinema and Manchin both being against removing the filibuster, if we end up seeing Ron Johnson losing, or whoever the Republican nominee is in Wisconsin losing, and we see the rest of this come true, we very well could end up seeing the elimination of the filibuster, because I think you only need 50 votes to eliminate the filibuster. And the only two Democrats that I can probably name right now that are against the filibuster, getting rid of the filibuster, are Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. There might be a little bit more than that, but it'll be interesting to see if Democrats can pull it off. We're going to probably see huge policy changes because they no longer need that 60 vote threshold to pass major legislation anymore. And that does mark the end of this video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you like this episode, please like one. If you like our content, please subscribe. And we'll see you in our next episode tomorrow.
See ya.